I was born behind warm bricks that held the day's sun, in a yard that smelled of coal dust, cabbage water, and the sweet rot of fallen apples. My world was a small circle, a milk bowl that clinked against stone, a mouse path under the shed, and a man's boots that came home with the same grease and tobacco scent. At dusk, the hens muttered, cartwheels groaned on the road, and I learned the safe places: under the bench when dogs passed, on the windowsill when rain came. On quiet days, I moved through familiar sounds. I waited for crumbs to fall, for the scrape of a match, for the hiss of lamp oil that meant warmth. Hands sometimes lifted me, rough but steady, and I accepted it because it meant food. I knew the household's rhythm: morning footsteps, midday stillness, evening voices, night silence broken only by my own purr and distant barking. The air tasted of stove smoke and damp wood. It was stable. It was mine. Then the stitching began to pull. It started with new smells on the road: sharp sweat, metal handled too much, horses breathing hard, and a sour fear clinging to wool. Men gathered in knots, their voices snapping like crows. Paper appeared in hands, waved and pointed at. Doors opened and closed too fast. My man's boots came home later, and when they did, they carried dust that was not from our yard. The nights changed. Instead of slow talk and bowls scraped clean, there were hurried bites, belts tugged tight, and the scrape of a trunk dragged from above. A woman's hands trembled when she filled my dish. She pressed her forehead to the table and made a low, broken sound. I circled her feet, confused by the salt smell of tears, and the air filled with something bitter. One morning, the yard crowded with strangers. More boots, more voices, a horse stamping steam into the cold. A bundle was tied. The man knelt and touched my head, his fingers smelling of iron and soap. His mouth moved. I understood only the softness in his breath, the pause, the way his hand lingered as if trying to remember my fur. Then he stood and walked away with others. I followed to the road because his scent was my map. At the station, the air became smoke and bodies. The ground shivered under wheels. A scream of steam cut through everything. I slipped between legs, whiskers brushing cloth. Someone's boot nudged my ribs. I darted. My man was there, his scent, his shape. Then he was swallowed by the dark mouth of a train. The cars shuddered and pulled. I ran alongside until speed and noise tore him away. When the last car vanished, the station did not return to quiet. It kept its nervous buzzing, and I, with my belly tightening from missed food, stayed among iron and ash, listening to a world that had lost its old rhythm. Cold soot settled on my whiskers. The tracks led away from the station like two thin rivers of iron. I followed them because his scent clung to the wood and grease, mixed with many others: men, wool, leather, fear. The air tasted different the farther I walked. Fewer cooking fires, more smoke that did not warm. I slept beneath wagons, beneath hedges, beneath nothing at all. The ground hardened. The fields grew scarred by wheels and hooves. Carts passed heavy with crates that smelled of oil and salt meat. Sometimes scraps fell. Sometimes stones did. The first thunder came without clouds. It rolled across the earth, low and distant, then struck again, closer, heavier. The ground trembled in a way that was not train or storm. Birds burst from trees all at once. Horses screamed. I flattened my ears and pressed my body to the dirt. The men I had followed were no longer in tidy lines. They were scattered along long wounds cut into the land, deep raw trenches where soil lay piled like broken furrows. The air above them shimmered with smoke and something sharp that burned my nose. I did not understand the noise, only that it did not stop.
Keep moving.
I slipped down into one of those wounds because it was shelter from the wind. The earth walls were damp and close. Boards held back mud that seeped between cracks. Boots filled the narrow floor, always moving. The men's faces were pale beneath grime. Their scent had changed. Less soap, more rot, metal, sickness. Rats lived there too. They were bold and fat, their teeth quick. They moved through the dark spaces where bread hardened and scraps fell. I hunted because hunger pressed hard against my ribs. The men noticed. Some tossed bits toward me. Others waved me away with tired hands. I stayed because food existed there, even if danger did too. Above us, the thunder never ceased. Sometimes it cracked so close that soil rained down and men ducked, covering their heads. Sometimes it came in a rhythm that made the trench walls shake like loose teeth. The smell after each blast was thick and choking, stinging my throat. Night did not bring quiet. It brought flares. Brief suns rising and falling, turning the world white for a heartbeat. In that light I saw stretched faces, wide eyes, steam from mouths. Then darkness again. Once, a man lifted me, pressing my body against his chest. His heart pounded hard and fast. He whispered into my fur, his breath trembling. I did not know his words. I only felt the shaking. Another day, a shape lay still near the trench wall. Boots did not move around it as they had before. The smell changed quickly, sweet and wrong. Flies gathered. The rats grew bolder. I learned where to crouch when the thunder swelled. I learned the sound that meant earth would leap upward. I learned that water in the trench could rise overnight and soak fur to skin. My coat lost its shine. My paws cracked in the cold mud. Hunger sharpened my movements. The world above had become noise and smoke. The world below was damp earth, metal, and breath. And still, I searched for the scent I knew best among the many that now filled the trench. Winter crept in without warning. The mud stiffened at the edges each morning, a thin crust that cracked beneath boots. My breath rose in pale clouds.
Please make it
Water
stop.
pooled along the trench floor and turned my paws numb. I curled inside empty crates when I could, pressing my spine against splintered wood to trap a little warmth. The men changed with the cold. Their movements slowed. Their coughing deepened. The smell of sickness grew heavy, layered over damp wool and rust. Some scratched constantly, their skin irritated by unseen things living in their clothes. They slept sitting upright, heads bowed, rifles resting against shoulders. When thunder split the sky, they startled but did not always wake fully. Rats multiplied. They ran across faces, across chests, fearless now. I hunted them not only for hunger, but because the men reacted when I did. A few would nod, toss a crust, scratch my head with stiff fingers. In their eyes I saw something brief and soft when I carried a rat away. I did not understand it. I only knew it felt quieter than the rest of this place. The thunder grew closer again. One afternoon the air shifted. It came low, crawling along the trench like a living thing. A strange smell, sharp and bitter, heavier than smoke. The men stiffened before I did. Shouts, hands reaching for cloths, masks pulled over faces. I coughed and blinked as the air burned my nose and throat. My eyes watered until the world blurred. I scrambled upward, claws tearing at wet soil, and leapt over the edge of the trench. The ground above was scarred and open, pitted like diseased skin. The bitter air clung close to the earth. I ran blindly until my lungs seized and the smell thinned. When I returned hours later, the trench felt different, quieter. Some shapes did not move. Others moved slowly, as if pushing through thick water. The rats approached sooner than before. I kept my distance from the still ones at first, but hunger has its own pull. I learned to eat what I could without staying too long. Snow fell once briefly, turning the scarred land white. For a moment, the world looked clean again. The thunder paused that morning. I walked along the trench edge and listened to wind instead of explosions. It almost felt like the yard of my birth. Cold, yes, but calm. Then the thunder returned, louder than before. The trench wall near me burst apart in a spray of soil and splinters. I felt the shock in my bones. My ears rang. When I could hear again, the sound was wrong. Thin, distant. I staggered, one paw refusing to press down fully. Warm liquid matted my fur along my flank. I crawled into a hollow between sandbags and licked until the bleeding slowed. The wound burned but did not open wide. I stayed hidden for a long stretch of dark and light, drifting in and out of shallow sleep while boots rushed past. When I finally stood, the trench had shifted again. New men, new scents. The old ones gone. The scent I once followed from the station had faded completely. Still, I remained, my wound sealed into a hard line beneath my fur. It pulled when I jumped, but I learned which side to land on. Pain became part of my balance. Seasons blurred. The trench walls collapsed and were rebuilt. Faces arrived. Faces vanished. Some men tried to carry me away when they moved forward or backward. I did not know which direction meant safety. I slipped from their arms each time. The trench was cruel, but it was known. Above it, the land was open and full of sudden death. The thunder did not last forever. One day it slowed. Then it came in distant murmurs. Then, after a long stretch of tense waiting, it stopped. The silence was heavier than the noise had ever been. Men climbed out cautiously. No flares lit the sky that night. No earth leapt upward. Smoke thinned. The air smelled of damp soil and old iron instead of fresh fire. I climbed out too. The land beyond the trench was unrecognizable. Trees were splintered into black fingers. The ground was torn and cratered. Tangled wire lay like dead vines across the fields. The air carried the faint sweetness of decay, but also something else, space. Wind moved without being cut by explosions. Some men laughed softly, others stood still, staring at nothing. A few knelt and pressed their hands into the soil as if confirming it was solid.
Move, keep moving.
Wagons came again, trains in the distance. But the urgency had shifted. The scent of departure returned. I followed a small group as they left the trench line for the last time. My limp slowed me, but I kept pace through fields that were slowly swallowing their scars with grass. Villages appeared again, cautious and broken. At one farmhouse, a woman set out a bowl without speaking. I approached carefully. Her hand smelled of flour and earth. She did not push me away. I did not search for the scent from the station anymore. It was gone from the wind. Nights became quiet again. No thunder, only crickets and distant owls, and the steady rhythm of human breathing inside wooden walls. I still wake at sharp sounds. My ears flatten before I remember the silence. My body remains coiled even when the air is calm. The trenches will fill with rain. The rats will move elsewhere. The wire will rust into the soil. I stretch along a sun-warmed step and close my eyes. The world of men shifted and tore itself apart. I remained, and I remained still.